Hey, ISHTUers, on today's episode, we crack down on all things procrastination. How much money is procrastination stealing from you? Let's find out, and like and subscribe, and let's get into today's episode.
Straight from the heart of Miami, this is It Shouldn't Happen to Us. After 30 years of selling and training sales teams, we still screw it up sometimes, and this is where we tell you all about it, because it shouldn't happen to us. So, good afternoon, Sophia. Nice to see you.
Good to see you, Carlos. How you doing?
How am I doing? I'm doing very well, thank you. Tickety-boo, as Antonio says. I am, well, actually, I'm not tickety-boo. I'm frustrated. I'm the opposite of tickety-boo. I am very frustrated with myself because as soon as we finish this recording, I have a 15-minute call to do, and then I've got to sit and write, and I've got to get it done tonight. I've got to write this week's newsletter, which will be issue 2. So, guys, when you get issue 2, know when I wrote it like Thursday night to be ready for Friday morning. Now,
burning the midnight
I'm not going to
oil.
sacrifice. I am not going to sacrifice quality. It's going to be amazing, but that's the power of a deadline, right? Because I've been putting this off since Monday. I've been putting it off
to us,
since
Carlos.
This
shouldn't happen. We should not
be. This shit should not happen.
People
to
like us, we talk to our clients about time blocking, time management, which I think we have a pretty good. I think we've got our arms around time blocking, being responsive versus reactive. Every once in a while, though, a project gets kicked down the road.
Well, this is why no matter what tool you use, no matter what technique you use, if you fail to accommodate the human end of the stick, right, the human end of the puzzle, because I'm not an idiot. I know I need to write a newsletter. So I've had it, an hour in my schedule was there to do the first pass at it on Monday. But guess what? Got busy. So that got moved to Tuesday. So it was there for Tuesday. Guess what? Got tired, moved it to Wednesday. So it's now, it like moved day, I just kept moving the block. Find this free space, put it in that space. Moved it. It then hit this morning. If I showed you my calendar, it was in at 8 o'clock a.m. Then it got moved to 9 o'clock a.m. So it got moved across in my calendar till it couldn't get moved across any further. And then it started to get moved down in my calendar to like later and later time slots.
Calendar Tetris.
It's calendar Tetris. And it's now at kind of like, if I'm not careful, it's going to be in my calendar at 10 p.m. tonight because I've got to get it done. I mean, issue 1 went out last week. If you read it, good for you. If you didn't read it, what the hell are you doing? Not on our list. It was gold. Issue 2's got to come out. Consistency, professionalism, consistency. Why am I such an idiot, Sophia? Where does this come from?
A lot of things, and I'm excited to get into it. It kind of also reminds me of this meme that I saw recently that was like, I don't know why I thought telling myself I'll get gas in the morning before the meeting was a great idea. It's like one of those tests.
Idea.
Yeah. Until it's like you got to leave and you get in your car and you're like, I have no gas and now I'm late.
When that thought hit my head yesterday, how on earth how did that strike me as a good idea? Get gas in the morning. Perfect time to get gas. When the heat's on in the middle of rush hour. Perfect.
Yeah.
That's exactly the time to get gas.
The Waze, your Waze navigator app, it keeps tacking on more time and you have an empty tank of gas. Yeah.
I've been there.
Been there, done that, bought the t-shirt. We should make t-shirts.
It shouldn't happen to us. And on the back, but it seems to.
Don't get gas in the morning. Get gas now. Fill the tank now. So where does procrastination come from? Procrastination. Where's procrastination come from?
You just put your teeth back in.
Let me get my dentures back in. Sorry.
Procrastination. Do you know there's a few roots, right? You've got the best phrase for procrastination I've ever heard. Go and tell me. Because I think one of the places it comes from is perfectionism. So what's your phrase?
Perfectionism is procrastination in disguise.
Oh.
I'll run that back for our listeners. ISHTUers, turn up the volume, make sure that your pod is lodged in nice. Perfection is procrastination in disguise.
In another pair of pants. It's procrastination it's exactly the same animal in a different pair of pants. Absolutely. It is. And it's interesting. I was speaking to one of the guys in our team, in Sophia's team. Cool guy called Dylan. If you've not had a cold call from Dylan, you don't know what you're missing. Dylan's a rock star. So Dylan was asking me about a particular strategy today on our coaching call. And it occurred to me, because he was asking me when's the right time to do something, when we all know it was actually when's the right time to talk about a referral with a prospect or client. Well, I've kind of given the answer with the prospect qualifier. When's the right time to talk about a referral with somebody? If you're talking to somebody, it's the right time to talk about an introduction or referral, is my model. I mean, I bring very Carlos energy to it. That's my model. But he asked me the question, and he asked it in a very interesting way. He said to me, because, you'll know, right, is what he said. You'll know when it's just right. And it occurred to me afterwards, because then I told him what the right answer is, which is if you're talking to somebody, you're asking them for an introduction. But it occurred to me afterwards, the way he was dressing that up in his mind was he was seeking perfection. It was like, when is the perfect time? And it was like, I don't give a shit when the perfect time is. If we sacrifice perfect time for every time, then sometimes they're going to be perfect. Sometimes they're just going to be good. Sometimes they're going to be bad. Doesn't matter, because you're doing it that often, right?
Yeah, like when's the right time to ask someone on a date? When's the right time to break up with someone? When's the right time to make a cold call? Like every time.
When's the right time to start a diet?
Right.
It's like, perfection. You're looking for perfection because really you're uncomfortable doing it. Because I never ask myself, when's the right time to go to the bakery? It's always the right time to go to the bakery.
Okay, so that's another point. That's another thing I'm thinking, is that yes, it might be perfectionism, but it also is discomfort. I think things that are uncomfortable are easy to push down, up, right, left, down on the calendar, move it,
and then move it down.
Right, down. Right, and down. It's uncomfortable. We also feel like we need to have the lyrics down, which is perfectionism. And we feel like there's this like right moment. And referral asking specifically, are there moments that are amazeballs to ask for referral? Like,
of course,
when your client is singing your praises, is that the bomb.com? Like, that's, if there was a beautiful moment, that would be a great moment. But if we wait for that moment, then we're missing opportunities, and you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So, and Carlos isn't one of our biggest clients at Absolute Sales Development, isn't one of our biggest clients a referral from a cold call? A cold call, perfect, ice cold stranger.
You've made a mistake there. Our biggest client, not one of our biggest clients.
Our biggest client
by a mile was a referral ask on a stone cold call. Stone cold. And if you're not in the habit of tacking that as a part of your scripting if you're not working that into every conversation, well, then you leave a little gap. And that little gap is, I'm going to exclude these conversations. For example, you would put on the list of excluded conversations for referral asks, you would put on that list cold calls. Anyone would, because it's stone cold. You would be right to expect very little in terms of a yield from cold call referral asking. You'd be right to do that. Now, not zero, but very low. You'd be right to do it. What do you always say? One of the things behind procrastination is you do this mental gymnastics about, is the juice worth the squeeze? If you're doing those gymnastics, then you would say, I'm not going to ask on a cold call. But as soon as you give yourself that little out, that's like me starting a new gym habit, but not Mondays, right? Not Mondays, because Monday you want to get, for whatever reason, you create some fictional reason why Monday's a bad day. Tuesdays is the best day. But then you know what? Then there's a good reason not Tuesday, and then not Wednesday, and then
Yeah.
6 months later and another 50 pounds later, rather than just say, hey, Monday's not great, but it's today.
Today,
It's not that Monday's a good day.
You decide one day or day one, baby.
Oh, winner. That's a winner. You decide. One day
one
or
day
day
or
one.
day one.
That's
60 day, right? 3 months from now, you can have 3 months of progress or 3 months of excuses.
Regret.
Right? Regret. It's also
pain of discipline or pain of regret, right? They're both painful.
Totally. Yeah. Going back to the juice worth squeeze, I think it's also procrastination. A big part of it too is positive and negative reinforcement. Because you're not getting that positive reinforcement as with the reps as many times. It's kind of like, and see if you catch my drift here. I might take us down a rabbit hole that you might need to get us out of, but it's kind of like how speeding tickets it's not a negative reinforcement that is very effective in getting drivers to stop speeding, because maybe one time out of 50 times that you speed, you get a ticket. Same thing with referral asking. 100%, you get asked for 100 referrals and you maybe get one. Same thing with prospecting. It's the same damn thing. And granted, if you think about referrals versus an ice cold call, a referral, you're 80% more likely to close an introduction than you are a perfect stranger. But so because we don't get that positive reinforcement in the referral asking exercise with the frequency that would feel satisfying, I think that's another reason why we procrastinate referral asking specifically, but probably anything that we can think of when it comes to procrastination. We don't feel like we're going to get that treat, that Pavlovian positive reinforcement.
As soon as something becomes a choice, the bucket is leaking already. The value bucket is sprung a leak as soon as a human choice is applied. The human's ability to choose to do or not do something. Which is why it becomes, when it just becomes, hey, I'm going to make a different choice. I'm going to choose that rather than rationalize it, prove it to myself, enjoy it, whatever, rather than any of that bullshit, I'm just going to make a choice that every single time I'm speaking to somebody in the context of business, I'm going to ask for an introduction. If I just do that, as if that's the choice I make, I tell you, you'll hit 100% of the great times, 100% of the good times to ask, and you're also going to hit 100% of the bad times to ask. But what difference does it make? If it's a bad time to ask, it's a bad time whether you ask or not.
I think when it comes to procrastination, there's all these kinds of techniques. I used to have an accountability partner when I first started at Absolute.
Hey, that's a cool technique, by the way. If you suffer from procrastination, accountability partner is a cool technique in of itself.
I'm not going to lie. I've never had an accountability partner as great as Cody. I'm sure you remember him. He was kind of an animal. He was kind of an animal when it came to
He was massive, right? He was like 6'7" or something.
Yeah. Basketball player.
Yeah.
Dude, this guy had like crazy techniques. He made me feel like a lazy ass, okay? He had this thing where the moment his alarm clock goes off, like, I don't know where the hell he got these techniques. I don't know if it's part of like the Wim Hof ice bath shit. I don't know what like he subscribed to a lot of these types of, Jocko, all these, great stuff. And he definitely.
This is a whole industry now, productivity.
Yeah.
It is a whole industry. There are gurus that talk about it. There are, and don't get me wrong, I'm actually one of the guys watching these gurus. I find it fascinating. I find the human part of it fascinating, the humanity of it fascinating, that in full light of knowledge of what the right thing to do is, without this guru giving you a technique or a tool, you're not going to do the right thing. If there's anything that's that I can't think of anything more human than that, right? Yeah. That we will self-sabotage to quite that degree. Yeah.
Totally. So, I mean, this guy made me feel like a total weenie. Because I get a total weenie. And so one of his techniques was like, which I thought was really interesting, is he's like, Sophia, the moment my alarm clock goes off, I put my feet on the floor and stand up. because I'm training my mind not to think about it and think about it. And then I walk over to the shower and I get in a cold shower. This guy lives in freaking, I want to say he lived in, God, I don't know. Kansas City.
Michigan, right?
Kansas City.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, Kansas City. And like our water in Miami, even in winter, is not the. I imagine that's some cold ass water.
Yeah,
but I get it. I get the idea is to like not think about it. Don't think about it. And it's funny because my trainer, at the Cuban boot camp boxing gym that I go to, he always says later becomes never. Later will become never. Don't let later become never. Do it now. Like Nike, just do it. Like there's so many. We get all the. There's so much
Antonio used to say, a plan gets 6 months old one day at a time. And ain't it the truth, right?
A plan
Do you know,
old.
so I was at a sales call yesterday. You'll be proud of me. I was at a sales call yesterday. And I was driving towards it, and it was a pretty big deal. And I'm driving towards I'm having lunch and I know I tell everybody you can't do sales calls over lunch, and I'm right, but I also break all the rules. It is wrong to have a sales call over lunch, but it was a sales call dressed up as a recap. It was a sales call dressed up as a hey, can't wait to see you call. And driving over there, and I get an email. Hey, something's come up, and I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm like, I'm halfway to Brickell, right? And I'm like, you kidding me? I'm like, I was just at that halfway point that it was as far to go back as it was to get there. I'm going to be about an hour late. I understand if you need to rearrange. And I thought, you know what? Yeah, if it had been a small deal, I'd have said, no, you come to me. But it's a massive deal. So I break all the rules, as we all do. I'm like, no problem. So I got there and I parked and I had an hour. So what did I do? Do you know what? I went into now what I should have done was written the newsletter. But again, I found all the other stuff. There's something about this newsletter which is resisting me. It is resisting me.
What do you think, guys? What is it? Let's have a therapy session. What is it? Is it perfection?
Because I think it's perfectionism. I think it could be perfectionism. It could be, it could be fear of failure. Fear of failure is a big source of of procrastination. Anyway, so I sit there and I open up my HubSpot. And I just start smashing through my tasks. I got up an hour later, ready to go and have lunch. I felt 5 pounds lighter. The stuff I got
banged out stuff.
Because I had an hour. Now, here's what's interesting. If I was in my office, that hour, I'd have found something else to do with that hour. But I was only armed. I was armed with like $5 for a coffee and my iPad. And that was it, because I was expecting to do a call and come home, right? So I didn't have any distractions with me. Magic what I got through, like monster what I got through in an hour. And it made me think, God, if every hour had this kind of focus, this paucity of distraction, of options. I had a paucity of options. I was scarcity of options. So I just sat down and just did it. And I felt fabulous. And by the way, it's yielding. I set so many wheels in motion in that hour that if I did that for 8 hours a day, we'd all be, as they say in Only Fools and Horses, by this time next year we'd be millionaires. Like, it would be extraordinary, which is why these productivity gurus exist. It really is.
It's true. What percentage of it do you think has to do with like working from home? Because I know that, at least one day a week, I try to go out to a coffee shop. That day that I'm at a coffee shop and I see other people on their laptops, I incinerate my to-do list. I annihilate it.
Nuclear bombs dropping on it.
I'm done by 2:30. I'm like, well, I guess I'll just kind of tootle around the Sierra. I mean, like, I just annihilate my to-do list. Something about, I don't know. I mean, maybe that's another thing, like being at the office. You didn't want to be late at the office. You wanted to, maybe there's some psychology stuff there too, that makes it easier to procrastinate.
It could be just the change. It could just be a change of scenery. It could be that, 4 days, 5 days a week, you're working from your home office. So just the sort of psychological jolt of being in a different environment. But again, it could be what I say, which is that paucity of options.
Yeah.
I'm sat here and I've got options. I've got other tools around me. I've got other computer things I can do. And there was something cool about me only having my iPad. Now, I have a nice iPad, so I've got the iPad that does kind of everything. But it doesn't do as much as the computer does. So if I'd have been at my desk, would I have done instead, I'd have shot a couple of videos. I might have done some vidyards, because I like to do vidyards. When I do some vidyard prospecting, when I have 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there.
Yeah.
Would I have convinced myself that was the right thing to do if I'd have had my real tool? But the fact that I was limited, I had my iPad. There's only so much you can do with an iPad, even a good iPad. And I tell you what, like you say, in an hour, I got a day's worth of work done in an hour.
Literally.
So,
It's crazy when that happens.
That's a cool technique. Get yourself with limited tools, limited options to
lock yourself in a room.
Because really, what do you really need in sales to make a fortune? You just need this fella here.
Literally.
That and the headphones. I'd have actually made more money yesterday if I'd have had that hour without even my iPad. Just my headphones and the phone, and with literally nothing else to do. And I'm blessed because I live in Miami. I'm blessed for many reasons living in Miami. It's paradise. But also, all my buddies live in England. So at 2 p.m. here, it's 9 p.m. in England, 8 p.m. in England, 7, 8. It's too late to be calling people with families. So I haven't even got the option of calling buddies. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to make some calls. I'm going to make some recapture calls. I'm going to put some out. And I know for every 10 dials I make, I get a client. I mean, I've just been doing this long enough to know that if I could just make those 10 dials, if I didn't procrastinate, you just turn on the faucet, right? When you've been doing it long enough and you've got that book of business where you could just pick up the phone and start dialing, that's turning on the faucet if you know what you're doing. But it's options, procrastination, perfectionism.
Yeah.
Fear of failure. Fear of failure is a big one.
So how do we combat this? I've read in various places and I've heard in motivational talks and this kind of thing, the concept of doing the hard thing first. So if the newsletter chaps your ass, do that Monday or do that at the top of the day.
It was in on Monday. And then it was in on Tuesday. And then it was in on Wednesday. And then it was in at 8 a.m. this morning.
The intention was to do it first thing.
But that's when it's supposed to. I mean, the book is Eat That Frog, right? That's the book that was originally, and I'm going back 30, 40 years when Eat That Frog was written. It was it was one of the first productivity kind of treats. It was called Eat That Frog. I think it was called Eat the Frog. Eat the Frog.
I think that's exactly what it's from. Yeah.
And they say, if you've got a bunch of stuff to do and you don't want to do the one that you least want to do. But I've convinced myself I do really want to do the newsletter. I actually enjoy writing the newsletter. It ain't, I'm not resisting it, or it's not resisting me because I don't enjoy it. I do enjoy it. I think it's a combination of perfectionism and fear of, I think there's fear in there as well. I think there's a little fear. So I'm putting it, but I think it's mainly perfectionism that's getting in my way. And all week it's also been like
it's so weird. It's interesting, Carlos, because it's also going even deeper here. It's a lack of respect for the self. Like you know, your personal trainer tells you do 50 squats. All right, well, do 50 squats. Officer says, you got to move this way. You move this way. Your wife tells you like, hey, we have dinner at 7 p.m. at this place. You're ready to, head out to dinner at 6 o'clock, 6:15. You tell yourself you're going to write a newsletter on Monday morning. What happens? What happened?
This is such a good point. It's clear, right? That I'm not yet of an identity. It isn't adopted and embraced into my identity that I produce newsletters, because it's a new thing for me, right? For you and I, you write your bits, I write my bits. And if this was stitched deeply into my identity, it'd be done already. Just like it's stitched deeply into my identity to get to the bakery. That's in my identity. But get to the gym, willpower needed. It's when willpower's involved that it gets tricky. Willpower's only needed when something's not in your comfort zone. So clearly I'm not comfortable yet. And maybe reps, which is why, by the way, the first part of our newsletter every week is the comfort zone buster, to give yourself a tiny little challenge to expand that comfort zone every week. And, with reps, when I'm on issue 20, 30, maybe they'll be in my comfort zone then. Yep. Maybe then I'm knocking out, because I enjoy writing it, by the way. I mean, I don't know if you've noticed, I like pontificating about these topics. It fills me with energy. I don't know. But what else is on the list? Where is it stealing from me? Because, newsletters on it, and obviously going to the gym's on the list. But where is this stealing from me? I reckon, do I do enough of the prospecting? Do any of us do enough prospecting? That's on the procrastination list, right? And all the time blocking in the world is only going to be good. It's, as you say, you respect yourself enough to respect that time, that deal you did with yourself.
It's like we feel like pressure makes diamonds. Sometimes
it also bursts pipes, right?
Right. Like we procrastinate to the point where we're, under the knife, or no, that's not the word. Not the phrase, but we're like, under
the cosh, under the clock. It's
under the clock.
I'm going to be doing this tonight till late.
Yeah,
because I know that in my identity isn't someone that that misses a deadline. That isn't in my identity. It has always been in my identity to leave things to last minute, though, isn't it yours?
In some things, yes. Also, it's like we have so many meetings on our calendar, and that appointment with yourself is easy to scoot around. That's also part of the respecting yourself, and that appointment with yourself.
Yeah.
Like it was an appointment with a client, or like if it were an appointment with a prospect or whatever.
So what's the big tool here? Well, what's the big technique? The big technique in my mind here is it's got a technical aspect, a tool aspect, and a human aspect. So as a way to wrap and put a bow on this, identify those activities that are high value, but you absolutely know, left to their own devices, they're going to be avoided excuse. They're excuse magnets, right?
Yeah.
And then once you've identified those activities, time block it in your calendar. So a calendar is a great tool to use here, but don't let yourself off the hook with that time block. And a great example of that is prospecting. It isn't all for everybody. It isn't newsletter writing, but it is prospecting. It is the follow-up tasks in HubSpot, in your CRM.